to another Spotlights podcast. This week we have the official Liverpool Supporter Club from Pittsburgh. And with me is the chairman of the club, Jody Fleming Jr. Jody, thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks for having me. And everybody calls me Loaf. They probably won't know who I am if you say Jody. So
they're going to be like, who is this guy on the podcast out of us? So let's start with you, I guess. If you want to tell the listeners, how long have you been a Liverpool supporter and how did you come about being a Liverpool supporter?
Okay. So for me, I started really following the team in 2006. The first match I ever watched live was the Gerrard Final FA Cup. I knew nothing about Istanbul. So like everybody says, oh, you started following after 2005 and you just jumped the bandwagon. I didn't know it existed. So it was just one of those things where a couple buddies got together and the game was on and it was just pretty cool and just happened to be Liverpool and that was a very entertaining match and just went from there. One of the main reasons why it was Liverpool though is when I was in college, I pledged a frat. And when you pledge a frat, as you may or may not know, you get a big brother and a big sister. Well, my big brother, he was a decent soccer fan. And when he graduated and went to law school, he met up with a guy who was a huge Liverpool fan. And just from him watching it and then getting me into it, and that's where it took off. So, 13 years later, here we are. If you would have told me a southwestern Pennsylvania boy would be a huge soccer fan when I'm an adult, I would have probably beat you up because southwestern PA is all about football. Texas and Southwest.
Yeah, exactly. It's another Texas over there. So before then though, like during childhood, high school and stuff like that, you were never interested in soccer, never watched soccer. That's kind of like how it started, or?
Never really watched it. I mean, I watched the World Cup and when it was in the U.S. Everybody plays soccer around here until you're old enough to play football. And then once you hit that age where you can start playing tackle football, then that's what we did. So I literally didn't play soccer from the time I was 5 until, we'll get into it later, but when we have Supporters Cup tournaments and stuff like that. So 30 years. You hit the age of 5, 6, and you start playing football. And then being from Pittsburgh, that's right around the time that Mario Lemieux came and the deck hockey scene took off and the ice hockey scene. So you played a lot of hockey in southwestern PA.
Gotcha. So how did the forming the supporter club and, bringing the community together come about? So
the way we formed OLSC Pittsburgh, there's a pub in Pittsburgh where it's the soccer bar. It's not really, how do I want to word it? It's not an official pub of anybody. So they show all matches. And after my buddy got back from law school, we started going every weekend. And as you would go, you would start to see the same couple people over and over again. And just one day we were like, we had noticed that Chelsea down in Pittsburgh, they were a supporters group. And we started asking questions about, what the differences were. And it pretty much formed from 3 guys. We sat down, had a few pints, and started discussing things. And at the time, this would have been 2011, 2012, somewhere around there, Liverpool wasn't accepting any new official supporters groups. So we had to wait our turn. And so what we ended up doing was every time we went to the pub, I took a notebook with me and I got people's email addresses. I got, screen names and things like that. That's back when you actually communicated over like AOL and stuff. But
you won't reveal anybody's age. Keep going.
Yeah. So, and we started doing that. And then I reached out to the Baltimore group, the Chicago group, the New York group, the really big ones for advice on how to start forming it. And then we found out about how you needed to have so many official memberships through the club and things like that. Little did I know that there was a ton of Liverpool fans in Pittsburgh. I don't know if it's from the Steel City and, how Liverpool's a blue collar town. I don't know if that was something that pulled each other in. But next thing you knew, we had a list of 50 names. And out of those 50, I would say at least 20 of them were already official paid members. So we already had our base amount. I think you have to have 15 paid and 50 total or something like that. I don't remember the exact numbers. But by the time we actually applied for membership through Liverpool, we had well over 35 paid members and upwards of 100 regulars, I guess you could say. So we got approved 2014. We're the class of 2014. So this is our 5th anniversary.
Yeah, and was it like challenging to find, like, do you guys still use the same bar where it all started, or have you guys found like a newer location that's just like for Liverpool?
We've had our fair share of turbulence trying to find a pub. So we ended up where, like I said, the pub that everybody goes to, if you're not there when it opens at 7, you may not get a seat. So if Liverpool plays say they play Man U at 11, you have to get there at 6:30, wait in line, and then you can get in. But you may not know which TV it's on, so on and so forth. So we started discussing, and a couple of representatives from Carlsberg actually approached us. Just one day they showed up to the pub, and they were looking to get their name out. We were looking to get our name out. And we put on a search for a pub, and we found one. It wasn't in the city proper, but it was right through mass transit and everything. And we moved there the 2016 season. I remember our first match there was the Stoke City match where Coutinho smashed that late winner in. And we stayed there for a couple seasons. And then just this past year, that bar got bought by a big conglomerate, and they no longer wanted to really host, and can't blame them. So we moved to a little place. Literally, as soon as we moved there, something out of our hands, we couldn't control it. We got dropped by them also. So a week before the Champions League final, we were homeless.
Oh, God.
Yeah. So we had there's a bar in Pittsburgh, and it's called Industry Public House. They have two locations. They have a location closer to the airport, which is the bigger one, and then they have one in a suburb called Lawrenceville. And Lawrenceville is, I don't want to use the word hipster, but it's kind of hipsterish. A lot of breweries and things like that down there. It's pretty cool, actually. But so the Everton group actually uses the Lawrenceville location, and the general manager had contacted us, and he's a big Liverpool fan. And he said that he's always wanted to try to get us to come there, just out of selfishness for himself. And so we went there for the Champions League final, and it was amazing. The place was packed. We kicked all the Carlsberg by, I want to say, the 20-minute mark of the first half. They were out of Carlsberg. And we just, over the summer, we started discussing it, and they're a new home, and we couldn't be happier. And the cool thing is like when we have Merseyside derbies and things like that, we had always talked about doing a home and home, but I always felt kind of rude, like cheating, quote unquote, on our home bar by going someplace else. But now that they're owned by the same group, we can go back and forth without hassle. So we're probably going to do some home and home Merseyside derbies and things like that.
Wow, that sounds eventful. So what does the challenge come from? Is it like, the times of the games, or is it like the number of people? Like obviously different situations are because of different reasons. But overall, I know like a lot of the supporter clubs, as they start out, or, there's groups that are trying to get the official title. I think is it the timing of the games that causes the biggest issue?
So in Pittsburgh, there's a couple of things, and I'm not saying this is just relative to Pittsburgh, but to find a bar that if you're butting up against the Steeler game on Steeler Sunday, you're not going to have airtime. They're going to put the Steeler game on every time, no matter what. So our biggest thing was a 7:30 Burnley match. We may only draw 5 or 6 people, and the pubs were like, it's not worth us to open up to pay staff and things like that. So they started putting a requirement on at least 15 to 20 people needed to RSVP by Thursday of the week of match week. And if we didn't have 15 to 20 people, then they wouldn't open up early for us. So it was very embarrassing when you would have other official supporters groups and have their committee members text you and say, "Hey, I'm coming in. What time is the match?" And you have to tell them, "Oh, our pub's not opening."
Oh, wow.
So when we started having that issue, that's when we started looking around. And like I said, every door that closes leads to another one, all those cliches and things like that. But every challenge that we have had so far, if it's led us to where we are now with industry, then I couldn't be happier. So they have all the subscription services that we need. They have BR Live. They have ESPN Plus. They even offered to stream the preseason matches this year, and we had people show up for preseason matches, which we usually didn't have in years past. So yeah, it was more of finding a bar that would open early, and also finding a bar that even whenever Liverpool and the Steelers, while they may not butt up exactly against each other, we had issues where if it was an 11 o'clock match on Sunday, the game was getting over at 1 just as the Steelers were kicking off. Well, 12:30 they wanted to put the pregame on and things like that. So that was one of the main issues. Like I said, Pittsburgh's football all the way. So it's a losing battle that you're not going to win.
Gotcha. And sounds like you didn't have as much of a. I mean, most group founders I've spoken to, during these spotlights, their main issue was really building up the numbers. Looks like you guys had the numbers gradually build before, in those 2-3 years. And then it was finding the location was the bigger part of the challenge. Did you do anything special aside from, I know you mentioned, overtime, building the names, jotting them down. Did you do anything special to kind of increase those numbers, the pool, if you will, that you can get members from?
So what we did was, one of the first things we did was started a Facebook page. So not a group page, but just an actual page that anybody can search for. And we set it up to where when somebody would like the page, we would send them a message and say, shoot, me or the vice chair or somebody like that, shoot us a message and we can get some information off of you. And after the page started growing exponentially, then we moved into Twitter. And then we started a group page on Facebook. And the group page is where a lot of the people can get together. We can create events and invite everyone. So it was really, social media really helped us out. And just the fact that there are so few places in Pittsburgh that showed Premier League soccer, everybody was congregating the same place week in and week out. And, you see somebody in a red shirt. Oh, hey, man, do you know about LSC Pittsburgh? One of the other things we did, and it sounds corny and cheesy, but all the committee members had business cards made up. And it was just easy to just walk around and pass out business cards and say, hey, shoot us a message if you're interested. This is what we want to create in the future. And go from there. We actually have a really cool picture on our Instagram page of our first pub where it was just the 3 of us. And then 3 years later, at the League Cup final, where we unfortunately lost to City, but we took a picture outside and it went from 3 people to 150. And we made a little collage that said from this to this. But really, social media, and I couldn't thank the bigger groups enough. Baltimore, Chicago, New York, and Boston. Can't forget Boston. Just telling us how to do it, and that's my biggest advice to anybody wanting to start a group. if you start seeing the same people over and over again, reach out to the established groups. We've been there. We've done that. People are, astounded that we started from 3 people. So, who knows? There may be somebody across the bar from you that you don't know. Maybe they're not wearing a jersey, but you're watching the same match, and just go from there.
Actually, I'm going to have to say the business cards, yeah, it does. I mean, on paper, it does sound maybe corny, but I think it's a great idea because, like you're saying, you just never know. And it doesn't really cost anything. It probably makes it a lot more official, too. It's something to remind you that, hey, yeah, that's right, those guys kind of thing when you go home after the bar. You might not remember what happened in the bar when you go home, but when you find the business card in your pocket afterwards, it'll at least remind you of what was going on. So do you guys do any like special activities? Obviously, you guys gather around for the, watching the games and stuff like that. But do you guys do any like charity work and things like that?
So we raised the last year's Champions League final, not the one where we lost to Real Madrid. We did a lot of football squares. For those people that don't know what football squares are, it's a board of 100 squares, and we put all kinds of numbers down. And every time there's a goal scored, whoever has that square, they win a little bit of money. So we did that. We did one of our guys, he went above and beyond, and he won a signed Virgil jersey, and he put it up for auction. And so we raised money for that, and we donated it all to Sean Cox. One of the other things that we do is every year there was a Tottenham fan who was very well known in the Pittsburgh soccer area, and unfortunately he passed away this past year. So we would have a huge supporters group tournament, and we would actually play at the Riverhound Stadium, our USL team in Pittsburgh, and we would get teams from Tottenham, Nottingham Forest, West Ham. We had so many that we had to enter 2 in one year. Arsenal would play Man U, and we would just play a huge supporters group tournament. It was sponsored by one of the pubs in Pittsburgh and the Riverhounds. Any money that was raised there went to charity. So we do that kind of stuff. But, other than that, we do any of the extra money that we have from like scarves and things like that. We like to donate to our local soccer area, high schools, groups, things like that maybe kids can't afford cleats or something like that. And we can give money there.
That's nice. I mean, and that's, something that I hear like a lot of sport clubs do, especially within their community. And I think that's kind of like makes it even more special, which kind of like, that's one thing I was going to ask. I mean, do you notice is there like a significant difference between like in terms of the environments between, being official and having a lot more numbers? Does being official kind of like bring something else to the table?
So this is an unpopular opinion. But in my mind, being official is almost not worth the hassle, to be honest. And I don't know what it's like from just being a group member, but I know what it's like from running it, where they have such strict logo rules. For instance, we had a sweet, and I'm not just saying this because I'm biased, but we had an awesome logo that we used for LFC Pittsburgh, and it incorporated bridges because Pittsburgh is the city of bridges, and had the Liverbird on it and things like that. We're no longer allowed to use that. We have to use the stock crest, and underneath it says Official Supporters Club Pittsburgh, whereas before we could be known as LFC Pittsburgh. Now there are perks, don't get me wrong. We can request tickets, which you aren't guaranteed to be allocated. And the club will send you some, if you request a signed jersey or something and raffle off, they'll try to accommodate you in that way. But other than the ticket, there's really no difference between unofficial and official. People are going to do things like, I know they say that, we have permission to use the Liverbird once you become official. Well, between you, me, and whoever's listening, there's ways around that. if you find a company that will produce merchandise, they'll produce merchandise for you. But, you know, I don't really notice a difference other than the tickets, which are awesome, and just the camaraderie that you get from other groups. But I've seen groups that are unofficial and they take off just as well. So it's a question that you have to ask yourself. You know, yes, it does help recruiting, but I've heard of some that are, you know, maybe even thinking about revoking and giving up their official status. I don't know if that'll ever come to be. So, you know, it's just one of those things that you have to ask yourself as a group, what do you want?
I got you. Yeah, I guess I assumed, I mean, most of the, like, based on the feedback I've gotten, I kind of assumed, yeah, it would really speed up recruiting because, I mean, it's a lot easier to, I think it's a lot easier to find, obviously, because you can find it through the Liverpool website as well. And not to mention, I think it kind of like gives it a more, like a legit look to it, as opposed to, you know, finding a small group that kind of got together online. It's, you know, just the fact that it's official and it's almost like recognized by Liverpool. I kind of assumed it would bring like a lot more Liverpool cred, if you will.
It does do that. I'm not gonna lie. It does help in that way, and it also, you know, you're not going to get a cease and desist letter in the mail because you illegally used the logo type deal. But, you know, again, it's more hassle for the people running it, and it's not a huge hassle. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's like running a Fortune 500 company or anything like that. But, you know, we are subjected to audits through LFC. They'll search all of our social media pages and things like that and make sure we're up to date on the logos, and every year we have to not so much reapply, but we have to reprove that we have the right amount of numbers. And then you're also supposed to have a guideline, a bylaw, club bylaw, and have an annual meeting to where, you know, you discuss things. And what we do in Pittsburgh is we open up our committee to every 2 years. The positions will run for 2 years, and then we run an election. So chairman, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer go for 2 years, and then we have a position that we call member at large, and it's kind of like the liaison between, you know, the regular group and the committee. So some people feel intimidated to, you know, come up to me or come up to our vice chair and ask a question or, you know, have suggestions. But, you know, if there's somebody else that they feel like isn't on that committee that they can come up to, and, you know, it works as a liaison. It works pretty well. I mean, I'm very approachable, happy-go-lucky. I let stuff roll off my shoulders all the time. I know that not everybody likes the chairman, and you know, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I'm a big boy, so. But
I think sometimes the title itself, regardless of who is carrying the title, people can be, I don't want to say intimidated, but just don't feel as comfortable approaching that title, would rather go through a different arm, if you will. That's actually a good position to have in that sense.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it sounded like, you know, 5-6 people on the management side of things to kind of like take care of all the issues.
Yeah, we like to have either 5 or 7. Sometimes we'll have 2 members at large. Sometimes we'll just have 1. That way, if there is anything that comes up for a vote, we have the odd number, so it's not going to be a hung jury type deal. You know, we do produce scarves. We just did our 2nd run this year for our 5th anniversary, and we like to send it out and have the design voted on and things like that. And you know, people just see the last 2 or 3 designs. They don't realize the 10 or 20 that had to be weeded out first, and that came from the committee saying, oh, I like this, but maybe we could switch the color here, or switch this background to this, and things like that. So we do like to keep it, you know, a small, tight-knit group, but we do like to have new blood in all the time also. You know, I've been running it since 2012, so I've been on the board 7 years now, and I'm trying to think. think this will be the first year that we really had, I think 3 of the 4 are really new guys, which is nice. I like that. I like having new ideas in, and I'm 37. I'm getting up there. I have 2 kids at home and things like that. So who knows how much longer I'll be able to do this for, and that way they get their feet wet, before anything happens. So.
If you think 37 is getting up there, I got some news for you, buddy. But okay. But sounds like, obviously, I mean, with anything when you're running a group of people, obviously there's some work on it. But I assume like a game day is reward, like a game day atmosphere is kind of like rewarding enough to put in all that work at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. It was awesome. Just seeing, even if it's only 10 people come out and just say, that you helped to do this. I don't take credit for nearly, everything that we do. It's not just me. We wouldn't be a group without the members. So it was, seeing the Champions League final and people coming up to you and saying thanks and everything like that. I'm like, dude, I didn't do anything. I just, got everybody together. You guys did everything else. Without the members, you have no group. It was pretty cool, though. I will have to admit that one of our members went out and bought a life-size replica of Big Ol' Ears, and he brought it to the final, and we kept it under lock and key until that second goal went in. And then he ran out to his car and got it, and we got to raise it and take group pics with it and things like that. And it was pretty cool with that. But like I said, I can't say it enough. Without the group, without the members, we have no group.
Yeah, and that's kind of like our hope with these Spotlight podcasts too, and through the website with our map and everything like that. So if you're in the Pittsburgh area, for example, and you want to connect with like other Reds fans to watch a game together, like cheer and sing together, you can kind of like, listen to this, get some feedback about it. We'll have all the links and stuff like that, of course, where they can contact you guys and then, find out where you guys meet and stuff like that. Because, yeah, I mean, I know I can speak for myself. I did not realize how many other Liverpool fans were within my area and within the U.S. So I kind of like started the, like the blog a few years back. Just the scope of it is unbelievable. And it's almost like, it's always like rewarding to be able to, even if you're connecting, like you're saying, like 10, 15 people, it's always like nice to know. And, like you're saying, if you're like from another city, you're in Pittsburgh, you want to kind of like watch a game, you can kind of like look it up, find other Reds fans and like have a good time cheering on the Reds. So any other things that you would like to tell us about Pittsburgh before we wrap the spotlight?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. I mean, we're always open to having visitors. We do like to do scarf exchanges. So if somebody brings a scarf, we'll gladly exchange one of our new ones with you guys. But other than that, everybody's welcome unless you are the blue side of Merseyside. But it's all good. Pittsburgh can be intimidating around football season, but it's just the Yinzers in us. So everybody's welcome. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know, like I say, my wife is from that area, and yeah, I know what a big football area it is, and it is starting. So I'm sure everybody over there is itching for action. So, well, thanks a lot for joining us. We appreciate your time and kind of giving us like a background and information on the Pittsburgh group. And thanks for listening. If you want more information on the Pittsburgh group or other sporting club groups, go ahead and head over to AmericanScouser.com. We have a section where you can see a map in terms of like where you can join these groups, as well as information on the groups themselves, their social media addresses and stuff like that. So you can get in touch with other Reds fans. Thank you again, and see you on the next podcast episode.